Today, we're going to talk about the Band-Aid season, which many of you lovingly call the busy season. Let's do some introductions. My name is Ben Reed. Mostly I'm involved in marketing activities. We also have two other fine gentlemen, and let's start with Mr. Joe. So can you introduce yourself?
Yeah, greetings all. Thanks for taking the time to be here or watch our video. I am Joe Medosch. I am a director of training. My goal is to make sure that you understand how to use our app. We'll talk about later as to why this could benefit your company and your technicians.
And Brian?
I'm Brian Feenie. I'm responsible for business development, sales, and boarding and implementation, and a lot of different hats I wear at measureQuick. And this is a very timely discussion due to the fact that a lot of companies fail to execute well, not only with measureQuick in a lot of cases, but also just in general. A lot of distractions that happen. We're living it right now. It's a hot week. It's been a hot couple of weeks for some, and this is when all the best laid plans fall apart. Happy to meet some of you after this training's done.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Let's dive into it. We are in the Band-Aid season. Everything about the HVAC industry is very seasonal. It's heating and cooling. We're dealing with the Mother Nature, how she decides to throw stuff at us. There are some very predictable cycles that happen, as you all know. The ratio of how many searches on Google for each one of these three things, like allergy relief, AC repair, and furnace repair, the AC repair always comes up highest as an order of magnitude compared to some of the other things that homeowners want from HVAC contractors. So this is the busy season. It's not just a busy season. So during this busy season, what are you guys prioritizing? I've gone through dozens of blog posts over the last week to look at all of the other advice provided to HVAC decision makers. Everything's about quantity. Everything's about try to get more leads, book more jobs, hire more techs, increase marketing spend, more. There's another approach that measureQuick has been promoting for a couple of years now, which is a different road. It's more about quality. It's about fewer callbacks, fewer jobs per day, making decisions with data, and finding every opportunity. Which do you usually prioritize? And there is a time and place for each.
So we're doing all this work. We're doing work for the sake of work. And we realized after the season that we burned everybody out. We probably churned customers. We looked like we did a good job, but we're trying to cram 9 months of revenue in 3 months, and it's just total chaos. And every best idea that we had or wanted to implement goes out the window. I met a customer of ours who was running 10 calls a day. 10 calls a day. All they do is change parts, fix, go on. They are losing so much revenue opportunity because of the fact that they just won't slow down. And all that is doing is providing opportunity for their competitors to step in, nurture that customer, and take them away, and get lifetime value out of that customer that was once someone else's. So to me, we just have a bad habit in this industry of doing the same thing over and over again, but expecting different results. We could call it insanity, truly, because it is.
Jim's been talking about this more recently about deploy all the probes every time using Premier services, being able to produce reports on every call. A lot of people don't think that's reasonable. That's another thing that we're here to examine in this webinar, to take a look at whether it is reasonable, whether the numbers actually make sense, to be able to catch some of that revenue opportunity that you might be bleeding out, but also to hopefully show that it's not even about lost revenue opportunities, is that you're actually just losing money on a good portion of your calls. When you average it out, you might be just losing money every month during the busy season instead of making it because of how many callbacks you might be generating. So speaking of callbacks, this industry has some major problems that leads to callbacks, that leads to dissatisfied customers, that leads to 20.7 terawatt hours of energy being wasted every year. It's outrageous how bad these numbers are, in that massive amounts of systems, millions of systems out there, don't have the right charge, don't have the proper airflow conditions. This was a Building America study. 70-90% of air conditioning and heat pump systems that are centrally ducted have performance affecting faults. And that goes to 90 to 100% when airflow issues are considered duct and register restrictions. And the industry average for callbacks is anywhere between 5 and 15, but some recent studies have said that 10% is the industry average. And you're taking a $500 to $1,500 hit per callback. So keep those numbers in mind. We're going to be playing with them later. Brian or Joe, did you guys have any other color that you wanted to throw on this hard truth number one?
Slow and steady is what we're trying to preach. Jim's coined this, but I know others have said it, is what's the most valuable job you have? It's the one you're on. The one you're on will actually be able to determine what the rest of your day is like and how much money you may make that day or profit for your company. It's that one. It's not rushing to the next job. It's actually making sure you get the most out of this job.
A lot of contractors that I talk to don't really track callbacks. So if you're not tracking callbacks, then at least do what we're talking about. This is not a sales pitch. It's just more of an education. If you can get a takeaway from today's session that if I implement something that can address callbacks that I'm not tracking or I don't understand how to track, then I probably have a better chance of being successful and not being susceptible to the failures that lie ahead. If you don't have a way to track them, try to figure it out. We'll help you the best we can. But if you do track them and you're a larger organization and you've got the means to track it, then you know where your numbers are. And you likely haven't been able to find a way to reduce it anymore. So pay attention.
That brings us into hard truth number two, is your customers suck. If you're doing replacements, they're going to be emergencies or unplanned. A lot of those homeowners, over 2/3 of them, never schedule preventative maintenance. So you don't actually know what could be wrong with most of those systems. And a lot of those homeowners are going out and getting 3 different quotes before they make a decision on who to go with, which then means delays. It means losing business, needing to cut down your prices or find ways to battle against another contractor in your area. And on top of that, household debt is at an all-time high, interest rates, and the consumer confidence index is trending downwards. So what that means is that people don't have a lot of money to pay for things right now. So if you are doing your service calls, replacements, installs over the summer, you're going to be meeting a lot more friction. Have your customers make the decisions, which both benefits them, sets them up for long-term success, and also helps you survive as a business. This is reinforced by there's been a couple of studies, one by the ACEEE Association done about 10 years ago, where they polled homeowners and contractors individually. Contractors responded by, just to summarize it, is that speed and pricing. Those are the 2 things that they thought that homeowners wanted to prioritize. Whereas the homeowners answered a little differently in that they wanted a better customer experience when they're dealing with a contractor, and they wanted a higher quality installation, higher quality service work. And one of the other challenges is that a lot of homeowners are in this state of obliviousness, is that they don't know that their system is oversized. They don't know what that means. If you're not providing that type of translation, that ability to bring the information forward to the homeowners in a very relatable way, and then allow them to make that decision so that, yes, there's a lot of customers that are going to want the cheap and they're going to want fast, but so few of them actually are ever given the opportunity to make a decision of, do you actually want verified quality? Because I know for a fact that very few contractors out there properly use the measureQuick reports with their customers. It's a very small quantity. So that'll move us into hard truth number 3, is that this industry sucks. You've heard about the labor shortage. Jim's talked about it a lot in the last year. Figures from Train from 2023 show that it's at least 110,000 technicians that we are at a deficit for. The deficit just keeps on getting bigger and bigger because we're still in the state where 25,000 technicians are leaving their jobs. Some of them leaving the industry, some of them starting their own companies, but they're leaving, and those jobs aren't being backfilled. And so we're continuing to get this massive deficit. So being a business within this industry is really challenging. And your business model within that industry isn't that great. Again, I just love all these stats. That's 1/5 of HVAC companies that are in the US fail every year. And what is it, 7 out of 10 companies that start, they fail within the first year. So it is so challenging to be able to run an HVAC business, partially because some of these truths or some of these habits that are accepted as being the norm, which is that you have to make a crap ton of revenue within this 3-month time span within the busy season. 200 to 500 is the common cost for leads, but that's still really high. Like the cost of acquisition in a lot of industries for new customers between 20 and $100. It's a lot of money for such a low profit margin. On average, businesses have a 1% to 4% profit margin within this industry compared to other industries that have 7 to 10%. That's just wild. And on top of that, the last hard truth is that your technology sucks. Half of businesses, so maybe half of you here, are not properly digitizing your business. This statistic is more about the businesses that have utilized fleet management solutions. They've gone from doing their dispatch and accounting via pen and paper to doing it digitally. There's still the businesses out there that are doing it analog with pen and paper. I've been looking at a lot of the numbers of how people use measureQuick on our back end, and the majority of businesses that use measureQuick aren't using the full potential of their smart probes. Joe, I want to pass this off to you, talking about smart probes and why they're actually not so smart, at least by themselves.
There's a major push for smart tools, but you actually need an intelligent app to tell you if your smart tools are giving you readings that actually mean anything. So you can see we have 2 Testo 605i's here that are giving me temperature and relative humidity, and I can see that I have a temperature split between the two of them of 68 to 53, and right next to them are the old style analog gauges that you used to just plug into the register and figure out what the number was and get a temperature split. There's no difference between the two of them. I'm just getting numbers. And we get those same kind of numbers in our app. You can see that over on the right side, I've got 68 and 53. But if I don't have a target, if I don't know that this temperature split is acceptable, or if I'm in a range, then they're just numbers that don't really mean anything. So if you're not understanding why you're measuring and what your target should be, then you really are just wasting your time as to what that is. You probably could put your hand up between the supply and return and determine that, yeah, that's a pretty good temperature split. This is for all of your measurements. You should have a calculated target and a range that I know that I'm in. So if you don't have that, then you're really just guessing that this is good enough. And I documented it. Who knows where those kind of documents are going? Who's really evaluating that? Who's comparing it to the manufacturer guidelines or whatever else you thought was actually adequate? So that's one of our challenges, that we measure stuff without any meaning or any consequences as to whether or not it was accurate enough or followed within the manufacturer requirements. Other stuff that's happening here is when you're, and you can see this in all of our stuff. So it's reminding you that if you don't have these information, and I gave a simple example of the temperature split as to where you should be and that I'm in the green, but that has to do with airflow and enthalpy, and outdoor temperature is a guide for what I'm getting in terms of my discharge temperature and my line set temperatures and my pressures. All those give us a calculated target and allowable range. And measureQuick is the only app and the only process that you can ever use to do that. So if you want to confirm that when my team is out measuring the conditions that are in the field, I know that they are measuring them and they actually have a confirmation as to whether or not they were in range, or we need to figure out why they're not. And any of those beautiful icons that we have on our gauges also give you great information as to what it is that I should be looking for, whether it's in range or above or below. We're trying to send you down a path. We use Brian Orr's website to actually give you better guidance as to why there may be an issue here or what it could be. All of the technicians that use measureQuick are being supplementally educated in the field right then and there, or using a better diagnostics tool to give them, oh, I forgot about that, or maybe that's something else I should go look into. So our goal is to make every technician successful in the field just by using the app. You can see that there's a variety of diagnostics that are here that happen when you're using measureQuick. You can use some of the manifolds that are out there. We highly encourage you just to use the direct smart tubes that are there. But again, I've got a variety of zones and issues with subcooling, superheat, suction line, all those are there. And then I actually have my diagnostics, and the diagnostics are very specific as to whether or not you're in or out of your ranges. And we give you a path as to it could be this or it could be that, or we're pretty adamant. We think that it's this, and we will say, this is the fact, this is the condition, or we'll tell you it may be a dirty condenser. And the reason it may be is because you, the technician, need to go look at it and find out if it needs to be cleaned. And then if not, maybe you have non-condensables. So we really try to give you a path as to, let's do some, the technician really is the ultimate tool here. You're the decision maker. You're the one who determines whether or not the blower motor is dirty, and that's why my airflow is off, or maybe it's the coil is dirty. So there's a variety of things that you can't use measurements. It's a standardization across all of your diagnostics. So it's just one way to make sure that one of the things I got a lot of calls from owners and service managers to be like, I just want to know what my technicians are doing during the day. I don't know what they're doing. I don't know how they're doing it. That's all I know is they're checking some stuff off. They're writing down some numbers, and then we're trying to conclude what it is I need to do for this client. You can do everything measureQuick is doing for you automatically. You just need a pretty heavy duty lift on a process.
This kind of ties back into the fork in the road, because if I'm out in busy season running 8 calls, just swapping capacitors out to get customers up and running, in theory, I could be missing a lot of other things here to check.
Yeah, I'm sure you hear it too, Brian, that I hear. We use measureQuick when we can't figure out what's going on. So there must be some crazy diagnostics, and people are like, yeah, I'll see what Jim thinks about my measurements here. But the reality is that airflow can shift, things can happen. You can look at the filter and it may be fine. You may have filter bypass. There's just so many things that are happening that unless you really want to do a thorough inspection or just fix the capacitor and move on to your next job you got to run to, then you keep saying we're losing money, but you're just clearly leaving money right there with the clients. And eventually those things come back to you.
That's exactly it. I had a call from a friend of mine who bought a new Trane air conditioning system a few months ago, and the thing continues to shut off. And the contractor, HVAC guy, kept blaming the electric. And then an electrician come out, addressed everything. There wasn't any issue at all, but the condenser was still shutting off, which tells me that there wasn't a proper commissioning done. They probably put it in out of the box, didn't set anything up, got a 17-degree temperature split and hit the road. And what did that really accomplish other than a customer that is now going to be questioning every little thing, every little noise, every hot day, am I going to make it through the night? And if they would have just slowed down, followed a process, it would have really gotten down to the bottom of it. The OEMs are changing equipment. It's getting more complex. It's getting more temperamental. And it's more than ever important to just slow down.
There's one other thing that I don't think companies are willing to accept or get their technicians or people to accept is that you don't need to sell them everything right now. If you realize your client's not going to be happy with trying to fix everything right now due to the budget issues, then you need to make sure they're aware of what's going on. And they will want you to come back sooner than later in order to fix these other issues, because nobody wants to be without cool air. Everybody wants to be comfortable. So you should learn how to step sell is the concept that's out there for many other industries. Okay, let me get you out of your panic and let me do some diagnostics. Let's talk about other things we need to do to prevent these from reoccurring. So if you can't do a good job of communicating all the issues to your client and then figure out what's the path for fixing them, if they don't know what they have a choice on, then they're just waiting to be blindsided by something you did not diagnose or they weren't aware of.
You want to fix it right the first time. And we're going to show you the numbers about how that's going to make sure that you're going to be more profitable throughout this busy season.
We talked to a lot of technicians, a lot of companies, a lot of people that are giving us feedback as to why they have been successful and the things that they're observing in the industry. These are really well-established industry challenges that we wanted to bring to light here based on the conversations we have every day with companies like yourselves.
And in addition to that, Joe, those are folks that decided to take action too, right? So they made the choice to not accept this chaos that we've been talking about. Yeah, it's scary to do some of the stuff we're talking about, but we wouldn't be talking about it if we didn't know people were actually doing it successfully day in and day out and winning.
So how do you do that? If you're an HVAC company, small HVAC company here in the busy season, there's a lot more that you could do, but very specifically for one thing that you're going to be optimizing, which is limiting callbacks. There's 3 things that we recommend. So the first is to go through a review process of trying to figure out, okay, where am I bleeding out, and look at those metrics. So if you have your FSM tool configured to be able to track those things, then this is easy. We recommend to get granular with it, figuring out the unique source of those changes of those non-optimized callback areas. And then next, you do a review of your processes. I know it's difficult, and so we're not here to tell you that you need to take the difficult path right now and change your habits and invest all of this time in this painful transformational journey. We're here to just maybe suggest number 3 is something that you can do regardless, which is software implementation of some of the tools that will help you standardize. That's the whole point of measureQuick. It is this one weird trick that was designed originally as this diagnostic tool for technicians that has evolved into this amazing suite that creates this 5 to 50x payback on the $5 per system per year. I'll explain to you what's going on with this slide. There are two tables. The table on top in the middle is that for technicians that are using measureQuick, we have some statistics about what an average call would be, and then extrapolating that out into by day, by week, by month, by year. Same with below for in the instances that you are not using measureQuick, when you're not using the vitals reports, that the ones that use measureQuick consistently are seeing their callbacks drop from the 5 to 15% down to 2%. So that's where that callback number is coming from. And then their average revenue per ticket is increased by 50% when they use measureQuick, when they produce the reports, when they do the vital score. So that's the differences between your average calls on measureQuick versus no measureQuick, is that it'll take more time. So we assume that it would take 50% more time. It usually doesn't take 50% more time per service call to do measureQuick. But we added a crap ton of buffer in there just to make sure that if you're learning, or maybe if you want to have a deeper conversation with the homeowner, you got time for that. Maybe you can fit out 6 calls in a day. You could probably fit in more, but drive time and some other elements. And up in the top right-hand corner, that we pegged the average callback cost to being $800. The industry standard is between $500 and $1,500. So $800 is on the lower end of what it costs to deal with a callback. And the average gross profit per call, that's a number, 40% was the average gross profit once you integrate the materials cost, the labor cost, the overhead. So those are the numbers that are going to affect the calculations within these two tables. Joe and Brian, what do you guys see when you look at this? Give us some commentary.
Brian, lead us off.
Well, I see on the bottom when you're bleeding out, and it's a pretty startling impact for the fact that if I just continue to do things without measureQuick, I'm going to lose money. By being able to spend more time, provide better solutions for the customer, you're going to make more money, and you're going to be able to overcome the callback, because your callbacks are less to begin with, because you're going to have them. There's no perfect world where you have 0 callback, but you're going to have an opportunity to outrun it and be very profitable. And I can't stress this enough. If you're tech and you've brought it up to your service manager, your install manager, the owner, hey, I think we should use measureQuick. They're like, I don't know what that is. It's okay to pass them off to us. We'll talk to them. We're not going to try to sell them on it. We want to understand their business and help them see if there's opportunity to help address these things that happen, because this doesn't go away. This happens every day. Many of you are looking at it going, yeah, I was just on a call back this morning from somebody days ago. Would you like to stop that behavior? Because there's a way to do it, and you can't beat the math.
So people ask us all the time, wow, you guys must have a lot of data. And you're right. We have a lot of data. And we have a lot of data from great contractors is how we're able to, again, pull all this kind of stuff together. But one of the things that is not a data collection process, not something you're able to measure, but it's actually a company culture. And when you are struggling to do more calls a day than time allots, or to do a quality call each day, or spend time on the system and talk to the homeowners and really provide the full service that you want to do as a great technician, and you're not able to do that, it gets very frustrating. And that just keeps constantly building. And it's probably because many people are just overstressed, freaked out, have too many requirements that they need to complete in order to make sure they had a successful day. I visited 8 clients today. I don't really know exactly what all I got out of all 8 clients, but I was there and I did some assessments. I fixed their thermostat. I did whatever small replacement needed to happen, but I did not able to do an actual system-wide assessment to confirm what else needed to be done for that one. You could have probably had an additional $1,100 to $2,000 per visit and not gotten 8 in. But I think that there's this place where your company culture suffers when you're all stressed out trying to get more done in a day than you could possibly do that. So you really need to figure out what is it that you're trying to provide for your clientele. And if you're not providing full service, or if you have lots of callbacks, are you able to retain those types of clients?
We had somebody in the YouTube commentary, I can't throw up the comment on the screen, but Trout Hunter Peter said that you're earning customers' trust by mentioning your diagnostics based on third-party software, because the trust is such a huge issue. So many homeowners That's why they make 3 calls to get different quotes because they don't trust that you have their best interest in mind. So if you're not spending the time, if you don't go to the extra length of trying to uncover those additional repairs, then that's why you have callbacks. That's why you have churn. That's why you're not making any profit, because you could be, if you had a callback rate of 2% in this particular scenario, you'd be having an infinitely more profitable season than if you chose to just retain that industry standard of 10%.
So if I invested $5 per customer to have that outcome, that's a pretty big deal.
I do demos as Brian does for clients, and they're like, oh, what's it cost? I say it's $5 per system for a whole year. You can go back as many times as you want. It's included inside and outside units. So if you install something in the winter, you can service it throughout the whole year, come back again before your year's up. It's all one price for the $5. When you really realize what's the full package and benefit, you realize that, okay, $5 is nothing for what we're getting.
And that's not all. You're not only getting just the reduction in callbacks, but we have a variety of things that most people never take advantage of. And probably one of the best ones, which we're not going to demo here, maybe we'll do another webinar specifically on live streaming. Beyond those results that our best contractors are experiencing, we have all these additional features. So we're going to just quickly blitz through these. Joe, if you wanted to add some color.
Yeah, I'll add some additional colors of green to what we have here. I don't think people really appreciate or are willing to use to their advantage this vital score. You actually get a real score, like a report card at the end that you get to show your client for an install or for a service. Okay, your system is now operating at an F, and here's why. Here's all the details. Here's some direct measurements that we have. And here's all the things that we want to improve that we also found from our visual that we assessed. And then you're giving them this report. You can share the report immediately right then and there to somebody who's not there. One of the things that Jim preaches regularly is that benchmarking a system allows you to keep track of everything that you just did as an install, and allows you to no longer pierce the refrigerants and allow a lower level technician to come back and use just temperature probes to confirm that you're still operating within that benchmark. And that is a major value to reducing accidents and other issues, or always gauging up to find out that you're actually doing fine with your refrigerants. Well, over time, we know that's actually a line for failure. Some of the things really haven't hit the industry yet, or you can actually stream your data to anybody in your company and get help and that kind of stuff. There's lots of apps that you're using for photos. It's all integrated into measureQuick, and you're able to do that as many photos as you want. You can customize your report, meaning adding your logos and stuff. We integrate with several CRMs. We keep all of your photos, data, all of the profiles you have for your equipment, all of that stuff, all of your reports. We keep it forever. Many technicians believe that this is actually the best thing that they have. This is the number one thing that sells projects for them, is this simple to read to clients. It's, I got a score, I got red, yellow, green, I explain what things are. These are all things that most technicians don't have, because they're probably filling out some triplicate type of form, writing stuff down. Maybe they have some additional illustrations that they got online, but in general, this is how your system is operating. How can we make this better for you, Mr. and Mrs. Jones? You got an 82, and now let's figure out what it is. In fact, if you look at the backside, one of that's part of it is you have an older system, but your system is actually doing great. Isn't that awesome to be able to tell somebody your system is an older system, but we found that actually it's operating at its best condition for its age? How many other systems can tell you that, or any other process can do that for you?
Yeah, those reports come in two different flavors. And so the vitals reports, that one's for the homeowners, and then the pro reports for you. We've had some customers or some contractors mix and match. So they're able to take some of the information, let's say the corrective measures, the measurement details. They use that for their homeowners because the homeowners that they have are very curious about them. But just in general, using it as that communications tool to bridge the gap between you have all these problems that you don't see. So let's give you a grade, and let's actually let the data, let the empirical measurements, and let this third-party system that, this is a communications tool. And Premier Services also gets you that batch of communications capabilities from tech to manager, tech to distributor. Joe, there's some pretty cool stuff that you and Brian have been doing.
Yeah, this is the future of a technician right here. It's like, you can think of it as like sharing. Like right now we're sharing our screen, but measureQuick, we only share the measurements, and we allow other users to reapply them to the measureQuick screen. So it's a low level of data that happens. And there's some companies that just live by this as their process, meaning that a technician in the field they have an unlocked project, they can hit stream, and now it's streaming to everybody in their company, and they've got people back at the office that are looking to see what's going on with your install. I can see where you're at, what your process was, that everything is in the green, you're good. I can now collectively help you figure out what's at, and I can double check that your settings are correct, your electrical readings are weird, maybe let's retake those. But if you, as a technician, want to change your career, this is it. This is yet to be promoted in any trade school or anything like that. But if you want to stop dealing with homeowners, if you want to stop going into crawl spaces and going to hot attics or being outside on a day like today, this is where you need to be. You need to be able to become a remote diagnostic technician. This is the future of where your career could take you. And I think we're only several years away from more and more companies implementing somebody who's in-house helping others in their field.
And that final thing, we've just-in-time education speckled throughout the app. A lot of you probably ran into this, so don't need to go too deep into it. We want to wrap this up with just talking about one of the case studies that we've promoted many times, but this is actually old information. It just keeps getting better and better. It's a sales tech that has been using measureQuick. It's an old guy he was resistive to a measureQuick. This is from Jones Services. We have a video up on our YouTube channel from an interview that I did at the symposium, is that he had been using just his own methods. They have a CRM, they have some processes, but once they added measureQuick, then he saw this massive leap. They didn't invest a whole lot into measureQuick to get that hundreds of thousands of dollars of increase to their revenue. And so that could be you.
On that previous slide, I want to highlight one thing, though, that was clear for him. You can say, well, I'm not getting that much on an average ticket, but look at the average options that he's finding. And he said he put probes out every time. It didn't matter why he was there. Design probes take nothing to do. Every time, and he kept finding more. So it isn't, you can say those numbers aren't real, but the real number is on the bottom. He kept finding more things that he then now got to talk to his clients about. And now whatever your number ticket is, it went up. And that's really the bottom line for him.
All right, so let's close this out. Brian, what's this about?
So if you're not leveraging measureQuick and you're struggling, we need to talk. I can help you lay out a plan for success. I do this every single day. You're a technician and you'd love to have your company embrace measureQuick or start to utilize it. Get me introduced to your service manager, your install manager, the owner of the company. These numbers are real. And those that don't believe in technology, I talk to companies every day that have checklists. I can write whatever I want on that checklist to say that I did the work. There's accountability here to ensure that your customer, the homeowner, is actually being taken care of properly. So I'm here to help. We're all here to help, but I can help get through the tough conversations of why we should do measureQuick, why we should do it. Why does my company need it? Or why is this better than what I'm doing today? And we'll investigate that on the call. It takes 30 to 45 minutes, but take advantage of my time. It's there for you to grab.
Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you next time.